Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for coming out, taking the time. I know it's a little bit late here on the West Coast, and I think we have a couple folks with us from across the country. So great to see everybody. The whole purpose of this is just to get you educated on the long term care landscape as it is in the United States right now, because it's very odd in the insurance industry. Sometimes customers tend to kind of take it in the shorts with most products and stuff that are out there, right? Everybody's always trying to make an extra buck and deliver a little bit less. Ironically, the long-term care market is actually the opposite to where things used to be really, really good. Then they got pretty terrible, and now they're actually pretty decent. But we're just going to touch on basically some of the numbers and facts and figures behind long-term care, kind of help you frame it up in your mind on how you want to think about it, what it may end up costing you, that kind of thing. Then it's really important to kind of go over a couple legal technical definitions of long-term care and how that fits into today's current market. And then we'll just briefly touch on a couple different ways that I personally in my financial planning practice help address the need for long-term care coverage. But really more importantly, what I address is eliminating a lot of the stress and the pain and the things like that we all know we're going to have to face when it comes to that point in our life. So I got about 27, 28, 30 minutes before I got to get out of here and go coach lacrosse in the freezing cold, because we decided to play lacrosse in the middle of November. Never played lacrosse before, but my son got into it and I love it. And so we'll try and make this brief, just real briefly to kind of just give you an idea of why I do these educational webinars. It's because my firm has always been very mission driven. And, throughout my history of being in the Marines and being a police officer, I've always just tried to be a servant and really make a positive difference for people. And I was dealing actually with a couple up in Woodinville, which is a city north of us here. And they actually own an adult family home and they do skilled nursing and having home care. And right about the same time I was helping them out with some financial planning, my grandfather got very sick. He was a lifelong smoker. That didn't help. So I kind of went through this phase in my life where I saw what end of life care looked like. At the same time, I was helping them out and I was doing their finances. And I can tell you that the adult family home industry is very, very lucrative. So this was a couple that you would not typically expect to come to me, heart on their sleeve, really looking for help with something like long-term care planning. Because quite frankly, they had enough money for me to manage and make sure they were going to be well taken care of. And we were just talking, and she just started to get tears in her eyes, and she said, I can't handle the thought of, like us not being able to take care of ourselves, even with as much money as we have, we need something in place just to have that peace of mind. So that really kind of changed how I viewed long-term care planning, that in conjunction with what I was going through in my own personal life. And so I just know the type of peace of mind that having these kind of things in place can bring. And that's really what I value in my practice with my clients. And let me get the PowerPoint all fired up here and off we will go. Okay, so uh, that's me. Everybody, I think on this webinar, I probably met personally. So I'm a chartered financial consultant. That's just a kind of a step above a CFP. It took me about 3 years to obtain that. And Capital Partners Wealth Management, that's my financial planning firm. And we really take a holistic approach. A lot of the industry really is just built by Wall Street to kind of separate people from their money, put it into investments and, charge fees and commissions and stuff like that. Really having a 30,000 foot view and having a background in insurance, I know that insurance protects the investment plan, the investments fund, the lifestyle. So that's really what we pride ourselves on here. Again, just to recap on what we're going to go over, the current state of care in the United States, kind of what it costs, a couple statistics, long-term care. And, the statistics are about AARP, I believe, is the ones who found that about 70% of everybody will have to have some sort of long-term care for themselves. My position, and just from working with thousands of people on their insurance plans, is that everybody, 100% of people will be affected by it. Because no matter what your end of life scenario looks like, we all are going to have that family member that may need it. And I know, again, when my grandfather was ailing, what it kind of cost our family financially, and then stress. And what was the worst part of that was that he was concerned about the financial stress it was putting on us. And all we cared about was it, taking care of him. So we'll go over the different types of care and a couple legal definitions and how that plays into how people plan for long-term care. And then just at the end, we'll real briefly just go over a couple different strategies that you can use to address the need for long-term care. So there's an organization called LIMRA. It's an insurance basically aggregation organization that takes a look at all the numbers for the different types of insurance it's used, also from AARP and the US Census Bureau. But about 70% of people who make it to age 65, like I said, at some point will need long-term care. So that's them personally. And that can range from everything from, and you'll see in the definitions, just needing wheelchair ramps put into your house. I have a lady in Oregon who had that done, all the way up to skilled nursing, Alzheimer's, dementia, which can last for years and years and years. So 70% of the nursing home residents are women. So females typically go to long-term care with higher frequency than men do. They also typically linger a little bit longer in long-term care once they get there. Men just have a shorter end of life cycle. Not to be too clinical and dry about it, but the law of large numbers are what they are. 38% of people over the age 85 will have some sort of cognitive impairment, Alzheimer's or dementia. I don't know if anybody saw, but all the dementia and Alzheimer's research for like the last 20 years apparently was based on a fake MRI. I can't remember the news story, but it was just amazing. And the whole scientific community is up in arms about it. $102,000 median. So that's the middle annual nursing home cost. Now that takes into account everywhere from very low cost areas to very high cost areas. So that's right in the middle. I'll tell you, here in the state of Washington, I have a client, he's a dentist, and it's a good thing he's a dentist because he kind of drew the genetic short straw. He has not one, but two parents who both were diagnosed with Alzheimer's. And thank God for the profession he chose. He's able to keep them in a very, very nice place. But in his financial plan, I had to address the need for $250,000 a year of long-term care costs to keep his parents in this pretty nice place to convalesce. So if you do end up with cognitive impairment, is really the end of life scenario, typically requires a lot of care. And that is the estimated lifetime cost for someone with dementia. Again, 34 million Americans will take care of a family member and you don't get paid for it. So that's where a lot of this stuff comes in, is alleviating that. So there's different types of care that you can go into. Assisted living, that can range from just apartment in a big living community where maybe you have meals made for you and you may not even eat that much. You know, my wife's grandparents actually were in a place down in Tacoma here. And they had, I mean, they had their own car. They were fine all the way until the end, but they had meals prepared for them and that kind of thing. And that was about $8,000 a month for the both of them. So it was actually, that wasn't too bad. Group activities, that's more independent living. That average cost here in the state of Washington is about $4,500 per month. Adult family home and nursing homes. So that's where you get into more hands-on treatment. I actually am in joint venture with some folks, and we have a couple adult family homes, and I'm out there and I see the high level of care that our caregivers take of people, and it's awesome to be able to help them. But I also know it's expensive. That's where you can get into private or shared rooms, and you're going to pay a little bit more for a private room. There's going to be someone there preparing meals, helping folks with their activities of daily living, which is another technical phrase that we'll cover in a little bit. You can actually be in an adult family home, assuming you don't need any skilled nursing care, which is intravenous drugs, any kind of medical interbody intervention. You can stay there all the way through end of life. So that adult family home setting can run, average cost here in the state of Washington is around 6,500. I would say up to $8,000 per month, kind of depending on the level of seat you want to be in. There's some farther out areas I know that charge less. And again, the Seattle area is a fairly affluent area. So we're probably on the upper end of that, but we're not too far off because it's just expensive to help folks with this part of their life. So then there's skilled nursing. This is where you have intravenous drugs being given, 24-hour care, doctors on call. Those places, I had a friend and her dad was in a place right down here and he had dementia. And every time they had to go into his room an extra time during the night or change an extra diaper or recook a meal or something like that, she said she got a bill every time. And I mean, quite frankly, you'd hope compassion would have taken over at some point, but at the same time, they are business. So that can typically run $100,000 per year. As you can see, especially for a couple, the cost can start to get pretty high. They can eat through a financial plan. As an investment advisor, I can build someone a good portfolio, manage their money diligently, safeguard it from market loss, grow it up into a significant amount, have them enjoy their retirement. But then at the very end of life, one of the things that keeps me up at night about my client financial plans is, oh my gosh, if I get a call in 10 years from their kids that they have dementia, that's really hard for me or any investment advisor to really address. Now, these talks tend to get kind of very money centric, but out of the thousands of clients that I have helped with these solutions, 0 out of 1,000 have ever focused on the money. The dollars and the cents, the IRAs and the 401ks, they don't care. I hear, basically three things. I don't want to be a burden to my kids or my grandkids. And it usually starts off with, hey, I just paid for my mom and dad, or I just helped pay for my in-laws, or I just helped pay for my grandfather and grandmother to go through this. And there's no way, Chris Reed, I will not do that to my children, fix this problem for me. So the second most common comment that I get is, I've seen what end of life scenarios can look like if you don't have what you need to take care of yourself or to be taken care of. I do not want to go to somewhere where I'm not well taken care of, or someplace that isn't going to give me the standard of care that I want in the end of my life. And then finally, for married couples, that's always the big one is, if I go, I'm not going to be here to take care of my spouse, or I don't want my spouse to have to take care of me. So again, on finances, the dollars and the cents are kind of the tool we use, but it's really these other bigger concerns that we use them to address, is how we feel about what that money can do for us.